Good morning to you. I am Mark Sudduth. It is now Monday, the first day of July 2024, and we are starting off the month very busy here. We've got very important and very impactful Category 4 again, Hurricane Beryl. That's the main topic of today's update. Going to really try to unpack what we're expecting to happen down here over the next several hours in the Windward Islands, and then try to figure out what's going to happen over the next few days as this moves into the Caribbean Sea, what to expect if you are in Jamaica, maybe the Cayman Islands, and then certainly interest over in the eastern side, and then eventually across the Yucatan, and then a little bit of a peek ahead beyond the 5-day forecast time frame as to what might happen with the steering patterns and the upper level winds in terms of what the intensity of Beryl could be like. You know, the other day it looked like it could be pretty strong coming through the Caribbean, and then some of the models were backing off. We've kind of had this back and forth situation with the hurricane, and there's a lot to talk about. Absolutely. So let's get started. And by the way, welcome to all of the new YouTube subscribers. We really appreciate it. Good to have you with us. The community here at HurricaneTrack welcomes you into our little world here of tracking hurricanes and just keeping aware of all kinds of interesting weather information and field work. All right. So the big picture here as we start the week and the new month here of July, there's our Cat 4 Hurricane Beryl. This is 96L. Doesn't look as likely to develop now. Conditions have kind of changed over the last couple of days. You can kind of see here, even on this infrared shot, that's clearly some more stable air that's coming out, the Saharan air layer, and that's helping to choke some of that convection off. It's just a little too dry out there. Not a bunch of dust. It's nothing abnormal, the African dust part. It's the dry air. It's not the dust. It's that dry mid-level air. You've got to have relative humidity really high in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and you can clearly see there's not a lot of convection down there with 96L. So that's a little bit of good news as we start the week and the month here. Then there's another tropical wave coming off that we're going to need to watch, of course. And then this would be the remnants here. If you missed it last night, very short-lived tropical storm Chris. And then finally, in the big scheme of things, look at the size of this giant area of high pressure that's sitting out over the Atlantic and just kind of ridging its way across here. The Bermuda Azores high, or the subtropical ridge, very strong this year. We're not going to see as much activity turning out to sea. I mean, clearly we're already seeing that now. Yes, there will be some, but I think this is the pattern we're going to be looking at, is a lot of impacts to land areas versus what we saw last year. So this is what Beryl looks like on the early morning high resolution satellite view, and this is a real big problem here. We got Barbados over here, Trinidad and Tobago down here. There's Grenada, St. Vincent, the Grenadines up through here, and Beryl is headed right for that location. A couple things to point out. The eye is in the middle, practically, of what we call this central dense overcast here, and when you get that sort of symmetrical, well-developed, rounded look with tropical systems, then that means they're going to intensify. The engine is running very efficiently. The outflow in the upper levels of the atmosphere is very well established. Down at the surface, look at that huge inflow band coming in there. Other banding features with the system, some high overshooting thunderstorm cloud tops through here. All the clues that tell us, just from satellite, that Beryl has strengthened once again. And then on top of that, we have aircraft data that have been flying, different aircraft from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, very important, and the United States Air Force with the hurricane hunters coming in there, also giving us on-site or what we call in-situ data. And that helps us to understand this very important aspect of it, the wind field. This is the tropical storm force extent area, and that doesn't mean, bring me on for a second, I like to talk to you as often as possible and not just at you. It's not like I'm narrating this. I'm trying to guide you through it, right? So it's not like the orange area, it's a tropical storm force wind everywhere. It's transitory. It might be blowing pretty good, and then it calms down, and then you get a band that comes through, and then it ramps back up again. You might get a big downburst. But just generally speaking, that is the average area, as a way to look at it, of where the tropical storm force winds are found. But they're not everywhere in that orange area. And the same is true for this little dark red area right towards the middle there. That's the extent of the hurricane force winds. It's not all the time. Even in the eye wall, the winds are going to fluctuate. It's not 130 miles per hour everywhere around that eye wall. And it's hard to explain to people how to understand that. But in a well-developed hurricane like Beryl, and one that is strengthening, these winds do tend to be more fierce. And that's really important to understand because it's on the uptick. The ability for that core there, the eye wall, to bring those very strong winds down to the surface is much more efficient with a system that is on the uptick, as we see here with Beryl. But I also want to make sure we understand that there's a lot of rain under these clouds, right? And that could affect some of these islands in here with flooding, and that needs to be taken very seriously here and anywhere else. Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, it's flatter certainly in the Cayman Islands. Jamaica, though, they've got elevation. They got some elevation down here with old volcanoes and just mountainous terrain, and you can get some serious flash flooding. So the wind is important right now, certainly, because it is back up to Cat 4, but the rainfall is a big concern of mine as well, and that'll continue to be a big concern as it tracks, potentially close enough to Haiti. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So this is a very important part of the hurricane process, understanding everything. This is from the public advisory. Read this sometimes, right? Get in here and read stuff. The discussion and outlook on the public advisory is very helpful. You get some stats right here about sort of the who, what, when, where, why. And then this is important here, too, about what the hurricane hunters are finding, both from NOAA and the Air Force hurricane hunters. And they're finding that the winds are back up to 130, and so it's a Category 4 again. But this is the real important part that I like to see right here. The hurricane force winds extend outward up to 35 miles from the center, the eye. Tropical storm force winds up to 125 miles from the center. So let's jump over here to our interactive tracking map. This is what it looks like on the big picture. This is why it's interactive. I can really help to show you some things here. Let's zoom in, and I want to point out a couple of, I think, kind of important aspects of this. First of all, this is where the 5 a.m. advisory position was, and the track forecast based off of that. The 8 a.m. Eastern Time intermediate advisory put the position right here. Clearly, that's where our swirling symbol is. And as you can see, and it's not a big deal, but it is north, and heck, I can just zoom in even more here. It is north of track by just a little bit. And that's going to matter because of where that core is. And I don't know exactly what the core structure is, but let's just say it's something like that, maybe. And you have like the eye wall would be something like this, I guess. And then the eye is sitting in here. This is where you could find those really ferocious winds, something like that, right around that eye wall. Well, where is that going to go? Is it going to impact Grenada directly, or some of these islands to the north and east of there, some of them more inhabited than others, and we just don't know for sure. But that's where these little deviations, I mean, look, we're not going to have these things go right along our lines that we set by connecting forecast points. That's all imaginary. That's just us as people connecting the dots. It's going to make wobbles, and go along. So don't look at it as trying to conform to some line that's sitting on here by connecting these dots. That's why they say don't focus on the skinny black line. We need to focus on where is that core right there going to end up. And it looks like it's going to pass very close to Grenada, but probably put them on the southern side. And then these little islands all through here, especially this one here, could take a direct hit. Now, I don't know the names, and it's not getting populated on this particular map set, but if you live down there, you know people down there, you visited down there, you're probably talking to your computer right now, and you know what those islands are, right? So that's the situation. That's all going to move through in the next few hours with some pretty devastating consequences with that eye wall. But even down here, let's just look at this. You can clearly see there is elevation in the way the shadowing is done on this map. And that rainfall can run down these streams and creeks and really cause some big flooding concerns. And that's something I'm very worried about, seriously. So the next few hours, very, very dangerous situation unfolding here for our friends down in the Windward Islands. All right, so backing out the map a little bit, it should maintain Category 4 intensity for a bit into the Caribbean. Then, where does it head from there? The core, or the center, should, and that's the operative word, remain south of Jamaica, south of the Haitian Peninsula, but depending on how large the area of precip is, we could still get some very heavy rain across Haiti, or even over here in the Dominican Republic, the southern side of Hispaniola as a whole, and certainly Jamaica, and there's elevation there, and that's the big concern. It's not just, oh, well, it is not supposed to go here, because a lot of people think of this as it. Oh, there, it's not going to come here. But all that rain, especially that easterly flow coming over Jamaica, or the southeasterly flow coming over Haiti or the Dominican Republic, you get that upslope, you dump 10, 15 inches of rain regardless, and you can have tremendous loss of life, damage, and all that kind of stuff. Understanding the totality of the effects is what is more important than focusing on where that little dot is on a map, or even the eye itself in satellite imagery. Oh, the eye is not coming here, thank goodness. The hurricane extends well beyond that eye, both in reality, like I said, from a satellite picture where you can actually see it, or our man-made maps for tracking this stuff and keeping up with it. I just want you to understand that. I've done this for about 30 years, so I've got a pretty good grasp on what to expect from these things, and I want to give that expertise to you, especially if you haven't been through anything like this. And then it could make landfall. We'll see. This is day 4 and 5 along the Yucatan, south, the center anyway, of Cancun, potentially. And then it could get into the Bay of Campeche, which they have had enough this year. But as always, days 3, 4, and 5, that's why the error cone gets larger, because over history, there tends to be a more wide range of options. That's just how weather works. So if you're still concerned about it, which, there is some concern, anywhere from Louisiana all the way over to Brownsville, in Texas and even northern Mexico, yes, watch it. Of course, it's hurricane season. But do we think it's going to come up there, any of us? No, I'm not sure. It's just too far out into time to make any kind of a judgment call regarding that. So speaking of all of that, let's look at the modeling here. What is that showing us? The first part of it, the guidance envelope, very tightly clustered, and that's good for confidence. Even in the longer term, as it approaches the Yucatan, a fairly decent clustering of the models. But then beyond that time, there's more spread in the guidance, as you'd expect, beyond days 4 and 5. And we'll see. Is there a chance that some piece of this, some remnants of it, whatever might happen later, ends up in or near Texas? Of course there's a chance, because it's so far out in time that we just don't know. And, I'm not trying to be flippant about it. That's just the stakes. We don't know. We don't know. We have to wait and see. A couple things to factor in, though, and this is important. Water temperatures all along any projected path through here are abnormally warm. These are not actual temperatures. These are our anomalies. And they are anywhere from 1 degree to 2 degrees plus Celsius. So we're talking 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average. And all through this area in here, talking about 28, 29 Celsius, getting close to low to mid 80s Fahrenheit. Most of science is in metric. That's why I typically say stuff in Celsius, just so you know. But yes, the water temperatures are plenty warm, and anomalously so. They're warmer than they should be. All right? So looking at the GFS here, and this is important. I'm going to show you 3 different versions or pieces of the atmosphere. This is the lower 5,000 feet, or what we call the 850 millibar vorticity. And this really helps me to understand the structure. There it is right there. There's Beryl. That's the remnant piece of energy from Chris, by the way, our 3rd named storm. Very quickly that happened last night. But there's Beryl. This is from the 6Z run of the GFS. And let's just move this out over the next few days. And we notice a few things. Clearly, the structure changes over time. As it approaches Hispaniola, that's a big old rocky, well, it's got rocks underneath all the beautiful tropical trees and whatnot. But it's a big island. Got some tall peaks. And so that's going to disrupt the inflow of the hurricane. No doubt about it. There's no getting around that. And so that will sort of throw a monkey wrench into that engine there. Now the GFS is interesting on this run. It bounces it around and goes pretty much near or just over Jamaica. Is that, the final outcome? This is 60 hours out. Hard to say. You saw on the track map, the official forecast keeps the center south of Jamaica. So this is a little concerning, I would suppose, because that could certainly put Jamaica and Haiti here in the precip side of everything. So we're going to have to watch this. This is not 10 days out. This is just 60 hours, for goodness sakes. And then it goes on by. It goes right over the Cayman Islands, much weaker, I might add, but still impactful. And then we get a landfall in the Yucatan. This is 96 hours, or day 4. And you also see the energy from 96L is right there. So another system coming through. And everything just keeps marching on to the west-northwest. And finally at day 5, both systems fairly inconsequential other than rain, which is bad enough. Big rainmaker there. That's 96L. And there's Beryl. Look at how different that looks from where we started right there. We go from that to that, so there are some structural changes. We're losing its intensity clearly between now and the next 120 hours. Why? Why does that happen? Well, if we look at, we'll get to the why in a second. Sorry, I forgot to go to the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Steering-wise, there it is, that blue area right down there. And the big high, all that red. There's a little bit of a weakness, though, once we get to day 5. This is an interesting, if Beryl is sitting in here somewhere, however strong it is or isn't, this red and our high is kind of broken just a little bit. It's kind of thinned out right there. So it should gain some latitude. But this is 5 days out. Not that far, no, but enough time that things could change, and you just know how it goes. We don't know for sure. Even 5 days with the confidence of the forecasting, as well as it is, as good as it is, there is still plenty of room for maybe the ridge builds back in stronger, and Beryl just goes right into Mexico, which is what the Euro shows, or we do develop that weakness over here, and whatever's left of Beryl, and you can see it comes back there, does get drawn closer to the Texas coast. Just a little possibility. We'll see. So what about the upper levels? Well, this is interesting. At 200 millibars, way up high, what we call the outflow level. And by the way, let me show you this. This is where Beryl is right here. And you can see the upper level winds are very favorable down here. And that is why it looks like this on satellite, because there's no wind going against it. The air is able to come up and come out at the top like a chimney. So what happens over the next few days? Well, everything seems to kind of move with it. But I think the close proximity to Hispaniola could kind of disrupt it. There's no obvious shear happening, so I'm not real sure why the weakening trend is being shown in the GFS. Even out at 72 hours, there's no clear area of shear like this. If you had a blue area like that going right across, oh yeah, game, set, match, Beryl would be shredded. So I'm not really sure, honestly, why it would show some weakening through there other than interaction with the islands, maybe ingesting some dry air. And it's a small hurricane, so that could make a big difference. Just wanted to point that out as we look at the intensity possibilities of Beryl going forward. Then finally, by day 5 there in the Bay of Campeche area, the southwest Gulf, wherever it might end up, that is detrimental right there. Those strong southerly winds, I'll just draw a big arrow right there. That's not helpful at all. There's your anticyclone. It's on the west side of it. That's not favorable. So we'll see. Maybe that upper level low isn't there. Maybe it's in a different position that helps to ventilate Beryl better. These are all big puzzle pieces, folks, and we're here to just try to figure it all out. All right, a couple of housekeeping things, as they say. I thought I'd mention a few things because we're starting the new month, and we got a whole bunch of new people that have subscribed to the channel. First of all, again, welcome, and thank you for being a subscriber to the HurricaneTrack channel. For those of you that have been with HurricaneTrack on YouTube for many, many years, I have a pretty cool announcement today. Starting July the 15th, I need a couple weeks to get everything ready. I'm going to finally introduce the first membership on YouTube. And it's going to be a very basic membership. I think it's like $2.95 per month, and it'll include the badges, the emojis, and exclusive access to member-only videos. And that will include when I post these videos, they first go on Patreon, because that is where a majority of our funding comes from. So our investors get the videos first. Then I put them on Discord for our people that are signed up through Patreon. They have access to Discord. And then about 15-20 minutes later, I hit that public button, and they go out to the public. So if you're a member on YouTube, and a lot of people are doing this now, they understand, especially gamers, that these memberships work, and it's another part of crowdfunding. So we'll have the badges, the emojis, to show your loyalty and your dedication to supporting what we're doing here. But any exclusive video that we put out, whether it's these updates or a new Hurricane U episode, a new episode of the Hurricane Highway, a highlight film of anything we've done in the field, anything exciting, our members on YouTube here will get access to that separately, but also in accompanying with everybody on Patreon. So this won't take away from Patreon at all. And anybody on Patreon, you don't have to do anything different at all. This is just an extra little thing that we can do on YouTube that does not impinge on Patreon whatsoever. And just something new, something I'm going to try, and we'll roll that out on July 15th. I got to get some of our graphics people to help make me some cool badges and kind of start embracing this. This is what people do, especially, like I said, some of the top YouTube people, you know who they are. They do this, and it's a really neat way to get people involved. Also, another thing happening, we're supported by QuickDam, a wonderful company up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, that does flood mitigation products. I've worked with them for a year now. I believe in this company. It's incredible what they offer, and we're going to be starting some giveaways. 2 times each month, we're going to give away 1 water leak kit and 1 of the flood grab-and-go bucket kits that's got a bunch of these flood dams in there that you can set up the water dams. Amazing company. Check them out, quickdams.com, for freshwater and saltwater flooding. We're going to talk about it more over the coming weeks to get you ready for what might be happening with flooding or just any accidents that you have in your house, whether it be pets, kids, a leaky water heater, a toilet, a tub that overflows. I'm telling you, folks, this company here, fantastic. Check them out, quickdams.com. We'll be giving away these products once I get home in the next few days here and get set up back from my hail work. We'll start doing the first giveaway, and I'll let you know how that's going to work. All right? And finally, this is really neat. I've got about 12 of these left. This is the best year that I've ever had in selling these maps. I drew that map myself. It is a poster-size paper tracking map that you can track this season's activity on, and they come with the $25 level of our Patreon, and then because I have to print 200 no matter what, I always have a bunch left over. And I figure, well, I'll sell those out on the open market, as it were. And it's a really unique piece of artwork that I created, that paper tracking map, many, many years ago when I first started my career here, studying and educating people about hurricanes. It's 18 by 24, clearly full color. And even though we've already had 3 named storms, you can go back to the advisory archives and plot those on there and get caught up, because we got a lot more to go, I do believe, for the rest of the season. So if you want one of these, you can get it. It's $20 plus $3 to ship it to you, and I'll put the link in today's description. Truly a unique piece of artwork that I made myself a long time ago in Adobe Illustrator, and to start my job, my career, way back in 1996. It's true. So yeah, if you want one, you can get it off the HurricaneTrack store, so to speak. And that's the link right there, HurricaneTrack.com/trackmap. All right. We covered a lot today. The most important aspect, though, of course, is very dangerous. Hurricane Beryl, Category 4. By the time I'm done with this update and everything gets online, it's probably going to be even stronger. It looks like it's intensifying, as we've been seeing. So best of luck. Seriously, got a lot of people that watch what I do down in that part of the world, and hopefully everything turns out better than we are seeing here. That would certainly be good news. We'll find out over the next few days how everything shapes up. All right, I will finally be back home from all this work out in the Great Plains, studying and observing this phenomenon of hail, fully invested in the hurricane season. Once I get back to my studio, I'll be home tonight, so that'll be good. And we'll be tracking Beryl and the rest of the hurricane season for you right here on the Hurricane Track channel on YouTube and across Twitter, some Facebook once in a while, but of course we're on Patreon as well. And with that, all of us at the Hurricane Track community appreciate your time today. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll see you back from the studio tomorrow in Wilmington, North Carolina. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.